Hi everyone, and welcome to this first video in a series about stage 5 probability. Now, probability is the mathematics of chance. So it's the chance of different things happening. So here we have a little bit of a number line. We have from 0 to 1. So one of the things to remember with probability is that the actual solution or the answer to a problem will normally be between 0 and 1. So the chance of something happening will be between 0 and 1. So we can actually write these. So that's 0 and 1. It's the important statement there to remember. All right. So we can write these all out as a fraction. So they can all be written as a fraction. It can be written as a decimal. And it can also be written as a percentage. So that's how we can write these things, but we talk about chance in terms of a couple of different phrases, words, etc. So we have our little number line here. It's between 0 and 1, and you can see that it's all written in decimals. We have some phrases in a list underneath there. We have 7 phrases under there. We have no chance, very low chance, medium to no chance, even or 50-50 chance, medium to high chance, very high chance, and certainty. So these are different words that have a meaning in probability. So if we were to pick the one in the middle, the even 50-50 chance, that's that one there. It's 50-50, it's halfway, it's an even chance either side. So we would actually have our even or 50-50 chance sitting right there. Okay, so that's where that is going to go. So when we talk about an even chance or a 50-50, it's halfway on the scale and the same a chance of one thing happening as another thing happening completely. Okay, if we were to look at some of the others, so let's go either side. The medium to no chance is going to be here. Medium to no chance. Because while it's not completely no chance, it's not quite as high as even. So it's in that middle sort of section in that lower half, gives us a medium to no chance. Which means over the other side, we're going to have the medium to high chance. So this one is where you're about halfway or so the other way, okay? Either side of that now, we've got the very low chance. The very low chance, and on the other side, of course, we have a very high chance. And then either side we have our no chance. So 0 is the can't happen. Absolutely not. Will not happen no matter what goes on in the world or what you do. This event will never happen. So this one's no chance. So no chance is absolutely 0. Not going to happen ever. Okay, it's like having a 6-sided die with the numbers 1 to 6 and rolling a 7. Not going to happen because the numbers 1 to 6 are on there. 7's not on there. You can't roll a 7 if you don't have the number on the dice. Over here, well, that's our certainty. All right, that's the certainty. Definitely going to happen. Will happen no matter what. For example, that 6-sided die, rolling a number between 1 and 6, obviously going to happen since the numbers 1 to 6 are on that dice. So that's some of the language that we use in probability. If we move along, let's have a look at a bit of an example. So here we have an example. We have a spinner with 5 equally divided sections. We're going to list something called a sample space. So the sample space is all of the possible outcomes. All possible outcomes. So our sample space is all of our possible outcomes as there. If we're being asked to list our sample space, we're being asked to list all of the possible outcomes from a particular experiment or event. So for this one, for part A, my sample space is going to equal all these numbers over here. The 1, the 2, this 3, that 3, and the 7. That's my sample space. So how I write it, I use one of those fancy brackets, commonly known as a brace, fancy bracket. And I just list all the numbers. So 1, 2, both of the 3s, and the 7, and then close it off with another fancy bracket. That's our sample space. Quite straightforward. All we're doing is listing what's in the number of outcomes, what's in all the outcomes. That's all we're doing. Now we're going to find some probabilities. So this question B is actually asking us to find the probability of spinning a 3. So that's what it's actually asking us to do. What is the probability of spinning a 3? So let's set this up. So we actually have a formula we can use for this. We can use the probability of an event equals the number of favorable. So these are the outcomes we want to have happen. Over the total number of outcomes. So the number of times what we want to have happen over the total number there is in the whole experiment. So we can see for this one, now this is a really long formula, so we can shorten it a little bit. We can have P of E, all right, and it is the number of events or number of outcomes over the total outcomes. Now you might want to write this a little bit different as long as you know what you're writing in and it's set out nice and clearly like this. So for our question here, we actually want the probability of a 3. How many times in our spinner does the 3 appear? Well, it happens once, twice. So I'm going to put 2 at the top of my fraction. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outcomes. So I'll write it as 2 over 5. So that's our fraction version. Or we could write it as 0.4 since that's the decimal version, or a 40% probability. Now you won't have to write all 3 versions every single time, but as you're getting used to it, seeing all 3 versions can be helpful. All right, for C, so this one's for question B. For question C, we're going to do the same thing. All right, so we're going to take the probability of the event, all right, number of outcomes or event. Let's write it as outcomes this time, just so you can see it. The number of the event, total outcomes. All right, now we fill in what we need. So for this one, we want not a 3. So we even write that in there. So not 3. Now how many times does not 3 happen? Well, that's 1, 2, 3. Not 3 happens 3 times. So we have 3 over 5. 3 over 5 gives us 60% or 0.6. And this is how we get through this part of it. Let's have a look at a different type of example. So here we have a letter is randomly chosen from the word probability. So we've got the word probability and all the letters in it. Find the following probabilities. So find the chance of having the next lots of things happen. So there's our sample space. That's what we're looking for in terms of what our chances are. So for the first one, probability of an L. I'm going to start exactly how I started before. Alright, so I'm going to use event instead of outcome. Just to keep it separate from what we're looking for before. So P of V, so probability of the event, becomes the probability of an L. The number of times L happens in the word probability, well, there's only the one. So it's 1 out of how many letters there are in probability. So to find the letters of probability, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 11 letters in the word probability. So we go 1 over 11. Now we're just going to leave it there like that. We're not going to change it into decimals and percentages. We're just going to leave it as that fraction just to make things a bit easier for us for this example. Our next one, same deal. Now, I'll understand if you're thinking, oh my goodness, why do we keep writing out the formula? Well, I'll tell you why we keep writing out the formula. It's just really good practice. It is really good practice to make sure you are starting in the right place every single time. Plenty of people will not write out that formula and then wonder why they've gotten a question incorrect. Simple error that they haven't been able to pick up because they didn't start with their formula. Start there, you know where everything goes, where everything needs to go. Your calculations are going to be good. The other hint, keep your equal signs under each other. Keep an equal sign column, go down the page. It's going to make life so much easier in the future and just in general doing these questions because you're not going to rush and do an equal sign that looks like a minus or a times because you've crossed those dashes over. Not going to make silly mistakes if you're doing this, okay? So now we fill in what we know or what we need. So now we want not an L. How many times does not an L happen? Well, that's the other 10. So now we have 10 over 11. Okay, it's just going to give you good practice because you're not going to be doing that many of them in an assessment. So just practicing that gets it nice and ingrained. Let's do one more part of this example before we finish up. Here we have the probability of a vowel. Again, starting just with that formula. I always start with my formula just because I find it much more easy. You may find it easier to start with your formula. You might find it tricky at first because it does take a little bit of extra time. But trust me, long term, you are going to see benefits. Now I'm going to put in what I'm actually looking for, which is the vowels. Remembering that the vowels are your A, E, I, O, and U letters. They're our vowels. How many of them do we have in probability? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 in probability. So now we have 4 over 11. So that's what we're looking for in terms of how to do probability. If we're looking at some other things, so let's have a look at one of these bottom examples. All right, our bottom example here, the E or example. Let's make it a little bit bigger for you. So the vowel or a B is what we're looking for. Again, doesn't start any different. It's looking a little bit different to the others. We're not starting any differently. Okay? Putting in the formula. Same deal. So this is why it's really important to practice on easy questions. Putting in your formula makes things easier when you get to slightly trickier ones. My probability is the vowel or a B. So it could be either one of those things. All right? Or equals either one. Can happen if it's and, both. So all means either of them can happen. But or and, if you see the and, it means both of them have to happen at the same time. Now, vowel or a B, they can't be an and because B is not a vowel. So we're using or. Okay? So or B, so we know there are 4 vowels. So we can actually pop that in. So we can go 4 plus. Let's count up the B's. Well, there's 1, 2 B's. So we can go 2 over 11, which is 6 over 11. So there you have it. That's how we're doing some very simple probability. In our next series of in the series of videos, we will look at some of the other bits and pieces with probability, such as Venn diagrams, two-way tables, all sorts of things. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. See you in the next one.